Got Rancid and Out Come the Wolves. In the opening montage, you heard Time Bomb, and now you're going to hear Ruby Soho.
Destination now. Ruby, 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 Ruby Soho. Destination now. Ruby, 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 Ruby Soho.
Matt, let's do the numbers there.
Oh, let's do the numbers. Out Come the Wolves by Rancid comes in number 306 in the 1990s on Best Ever Albums, number 32 in 1995, number 1,639 of all time. It's Rancid's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. It did not make Rolling Stone's list, and Rancid is ranked number 993 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums.
Okay, Rancid formed in Berkeley, California in 1991. The core of the group, and they're still in the band, is Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman. Their former band was Operation Ivy, and we covered them in Season 3, Episode 33. Brett Reed was the drummer on this album, although he left the band later in 2006, and Lars Friedrichsen is on guitar and vocals. They have 10 studio albums, and this is their third. They are punk or ska punk, or maybe skate punk. Influenced by Black Flag, Minor Threat, The Clash, Ramones, Bad Brains, and The Germs. Similar artists, many we've talked about: Bad Religion, Pennywise, Green Day, Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Goldfinger, The Offspring, and many others. Let the Dominoes Fall was their highest rated album. It reached 11 on the Billboard 200 in 2009. No songs in the Hot 100, although all three of the singles on this album charted on the Modern Rock Tracks list. The title of the album comes from a poem in Jim Carroll's Basketball Diaries. I assume that's the same movie, or is that just a coincidence that I'm not familiar with Jim Carroll or his kind of influence. I don't know if you guys are.
No clue.
Okay. Anyway.
I do. Yeah, Basketball Diaries, right?
Yeah.
And then This Is For All the People That We Lost, I think, is the big song they had.
Okay.
He's an interesting figure. Like, he's kind of like a Hunter S. Thompson type, but for drug addicts. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
He's like the patron saint of drug addicts of a certain type, in the same way like Hunter S. Thompson is for like gonzo journalists. Is how for what that's worth.
That sounds right. The cover art to this album is a tribute to Minor Threat, and a picture of that they used. They were on Epitaph Records, which is the label of Bad Religion's Brett Gurewitz. He also produced many of their albums, so they didn't produce this one. When Rancid was writing their follow-up album after their self-titled debut, so that would be their second album, not this one, Billy Joe Armstrong co-wrote the song Radio with them, and then he played a live performance with them. So there's still crossover from that kind of Bay Area scene that they were in with Operation Ivy. And they are still touring and releasing albums. Their most recent album came out in June 2023, titled Tomorrow Never Comes. And they toured with Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins that year. And the professional wrestler goes by the in-ring name Ruby Soho, previously in WWE as Ruby Riott. So
I think she has the song as her entrance music too.
Yeah, I think so. So that is another linkage to wrestling, as I am off to point out.
Yeah.
So
we do that because Matt loves when we do that so much on the show.
Right.
What's wrestling?
So yeah, Rancid, I am familiar with them. Let's start with Matt. What did you think of this album?
Yeah, so I knew the singles. I totally forgot about the single Time Bomb. So when that came on, I was like, I think I know this. And the chorus came. I was like, I definitely know that song. And certainly Ruby Soho, I remember being played all over the place. That was a huge hit.
Yep.
In the radio, on MTV and whatnot. So I was kind of like, I've never been a huge fan of Ruby Soho. It's been fine. I always remember that I guess it's the lead vocalist on that. It says here it's Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, like the vocals on that, I'm not a huge fan of. It's, especially like because there's some parts of it where there's not a whole lot of instruments, and it's the isolated vocals are right there, and you can really see it's almost like he's losing his voice, or but it's the effect he's going for, of course. So I was never a huge fan of that song, and so I wasn't like going into this week. I was like, okay, it's just like another punk album, but whatever, it's fine. I really liked it. I really connected with a lot of these songs. I really felt the vibe.
I am shocked.
I know I did.
This
was not a hard listen, and it kind of hit pretty easily. Like by the second, third song, I'm going, okay, this is it's more melodic, right? It's less hardcore, I guess, than maybe I was thinking it was going to be. There's probably like 3 or 4 pretty much straight up ska songs on here, which I pretty kind of liked all of them. And I think in part because they're spread out, right? Like this is not, I would not say that this is a ska album. This is more of a punk album with some ska, like a pinch of ska here and there.
Right.
And I like that. I like the fact that those were spread out. A little bit of ska.
Well, like a
here
song
and there.
like "Time Bomb" is definitely a ska
Correct.
song.
Yep. Yes.
Without a doubt.
So, but I liked all of them pretty much. So it's I think that there were some good riffs on here. I think there's some really good bass lines on here. There's some really good melodic bass lines. There's some tricky bass lines. At the very beginning, it's almost like a showcase. Like, let me just show you how fast I can play this thing, just to kind of show off a little bit,
There's some like bass solo moments.
Yeah, it's like that's which is kind of it's like a jam band kind of thing in a punk band, so it's kind of a little different. But I'm looking at it here. It's like the album's only 49 minutes long. It seems a little bit longer, probably because there's 19 tracks, right? So when you're just like, how many songs left? You're like, holy crap! It's like it's like 20 songs in this album. So I'd say it's probably a little bit long. You could probably cut about 4 or 5 songs off of this, and But having said that, it's not like there was any song on here that I was going, ugh, that one just that song sucked, or I didn't like that. It's just it just was probably, it got maybe a little bit samey, I would say, for me. I only listened to it twice. Maybe that would change if I listened to it more. But yeah, I like the different having different singers, like so there's some switching off between Fredrickson and Armstrong, so and hearing the different vocals. So I kind of like that, and just generally it's got that thing I'm always looking for, melody, right? Like there's some catchy, great guitar riffs, a lot of energy. It's fun. You can tell these guys are having fun. I'm not going to talk too much about the lyrics because there's some things seem political on here, but I didn't really pay too much attention to that. So I'll leave that for you guys. But generally speaking, thumbs up. I was surprised that I liked this as much as I did.
Nice. I'll take it.
Well, I like this album, so I mean, come on now. This is like Op Ivy. Like if you said, all right, now make it a little bit more mainstream, right, and make it, as Matt said, more melodic and add in some different elements to it. So there's seminal this is some of the best pop punk that you can do, and there's certain I would argue there's more than a little bit of ska on here, Matt. Like I think it certainly can just as be much argued that this is a ska album as it is a punk album because of some of the bass lines and stuff, a variety of things, and even like where it comes out of in terms of the roots. But I hear what you're saying, but I think this is one of the best power pop punk albums, right, that kind of ever existed. There's a reason it sold a zillion copies. I mean, Time Bomb is as close to like a mainstream ska song as you can get, because even most of like No Doubt's songs that were big hits aren't really fully ska. They're more like new wave, right? And the impression that I get maybe is the only other ska song I can think of that kind of like hit the sort of the airwaves like Ruby Soho and Time Bomb did, right? That kind of was like, oh, there's like actual ska. And the other thing too is like Rancid never lost their cred, which I thought was pretty amazing because they were doing really accessible music, but also kind of just on Epitaph and stuff, which I guess Offspring's doing too. Yeah, they still are, which I mean tracks. But along with that, Roots Radical was on like at least one punkorama. I don't know which one. I know I had Give 'Em the Boot, which is like referenced in lyrics on this as well. But She's Automatic, I think most recently I saw like the Interrupters, right, covered that one, who certainly owe quite a bit to Rancid sound, like a modern ska band. I think I've definitely seen them live twice. I believe Matt, by accident, saw them live when they opened for Frank Turner. So I don't know if he would have sought it out on his own.
Did I do that? I don't remember that.
Yeah, they're the opener for that show. We went, you went to, and I went to separately. Yeah, like Old Friend's a great ska song, but there's like deep cuts that I forget about on this one. Like Maxwell Murder to start off, I'm like, oh, that's a really good song, you know, like in there.
Yeah.
And of course, one that every time it comes on, I laugh because, and when I went to see, you know, Green Day this summer, Rancid was one of the openers, so then they played like an 8-song set. But Olympia, Washington is the song I always love to sing that chorus. Like,
Yes.
you know, like along the way, and like the full like Tim Armstrong, you know, Lars Fredriksson voice, you know, which sort of pushes the bounds of how bad a singer you can be and also be a singer of like a popular band, which I kind of love about Rancid. They're not like Bad Religion, right? Where like they're punk, but the singing is like very much on tune and there, you know, or Green Day, like Billy Joe, like has a little bit of snot. Even like Joe Strummer, right? Who kind of is, I think, kind of who inspired both of these guys to be a singer, right, from The Clash. Even he has more of like a traditional like tunefulness to him than, you know, certainly Tim Armstrong, right? So I always love that chorus because it's just like, it's an emotional chorus but sang in like sort of the most punkish way possible. So I love that about them. They're clean, but also like they're unapologetically punk, and not in a way where they're just flashing it when it's convenient, right? Like it's their lifestyle, and they just happen to get popular during a moment when this type of music crossed over inexplicably. The other thing I love about this album is, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the instruments are mixed like exactly the same noise, each instrument. Like, so the vocals, the guitar, the bass, and the drums, like all of them are like like competing for space in the mix, because none of them is pushed to the front or pushed to the back, which is something that I love. That's why you guys all immediately caught the bass lines. And a lot of times, like in ska songs, you catch the bass line, but it's sort of like is because they push it into the front, like, you know, with like, pick it up, you know, like and so like the bass line just is immediately in the front, so you notice it, and then the other stuff comes in and the bass line drops to the back. Or the guitars, right, lead the way in sort of the power pop punk type of way, or the vocals are real aggressive or back, so they blend in. This one's like perfectly mixed, and you just don't see albums mixed this way anymore, where all of the sounds are equal. It's always something is pushed to the front or the back, oftentimes situationally. So I really like that about it. It was a clean production, so it wasn't like early days of punk sparse, but it also, because it was mixed together, it didn't sound too polished. So thumbs up for the mix.
Nice. I'm in lockstep with you guys. I really like this album. I have known Rancid for a long time, although I never saw them live and I never really sought them out. They were just kind of like always around. Probably like you said, John, on compilations and stuff. I knew them that way. I feel like this is like, you know, as much as you responded to this, Matt, this is just about on the level of like Green Day and The Offspring in terms of like crossover appeal and like the energy.
I agree.
The energy on this Rancid album is really great. That's kind of what I respond to a lot. I'm glad you pointed out the production mix, because I didn't notice that, but that makes sense. You know, thinking about the album as a whole, I agree with you, Matt. There's like too many songs on this, but they're all really short, so it's like I forget at times which ones I really liked, but some deeper cuts that we haven't mentioned. I like Daly City Train a lot. I liked Old Friend, and I liked Avenues and Alleyways. So those are all kind of like on the back half to middle to back half of the album. The singles are undeniable. I love them unabashedly, and it does. I think you guys both pointed out, like, the singing does strain credulity at times. I'm like, this is like barely holding on to what the rest of the band is doing. But it transcends that, I suppose, and
It's part of the aesthetic.
exactly, yeah. It's the punk ethos, and it was just a refreshing kind of listen as well. I was constantly like moving my head, singing along to the songs. It has that infectious quality to it as well, and I feel like this album does get better with more listens if you haven't, just in terms of picking up on different choruses, I'm with you, John, too. Olympia Washington is a great like chorus to sing along to every time it was on.
I have to practice too, because I can't just sing. I can start to sound a lot like, the members of the band, but like I can't like off like for this, right? Like I have to like get the sound right. So there's an art to do in Tim Armstrong.
So this is, I think, ultimately like what if there's a ska punk band still, if they're still around, if that's still a genre, they're still trying to reach this kind of appeal and quality. So this is a strong recommend for me as well.
I was also thinking of like the Offspring and Green Day, bands like that, more commercial, mainstream punk bands, along with this. But this because of the vocals stylings and the edgier sound. I mean, this is this is more of a punk album than those. It's less polished for sure, and it kind of has that more of a, it probably straddles that line more, leaning a little bit more punk than it does, pop or more of a popular sound. But in terms of like catchy hooks and really, it's stuff that's really kind of easily accessible, I think it definitely occupies that same lane as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Probably the lead singers of Offspring and Green Day are stronger in terms of their vocal quality is better.
Yeah, they're better, right? Yeah. They're more traditional.
Although,
it's not like,
I will say when Dexter Holland came on from the Offspring, there wasn't a whole lot that ever happened in pop music that sounded like him either. Like, because there's been a lot after it, there, but really no one sang with that sort of like whiny, nasally sort of voice that he had either. I think Billy Joe was familiar for anybody who'd ever heard like the Ramones or the Clash, right? Because he sounded or the Buzz.
But they're both clean, right? Like Armstrong's like, it's almost like he's it's like, he's not, is he really singing? I don't know. It's not a clean vocal style by any sense, but it fits the aesthetic of what the band's going for.
Yeah.
And it sounds
it's
cool.
like the Bob Dylan thing, it's the aesthetic fits for what they're going for. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm all for that.
Nice.